Ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We're in our nation's capital to update you on the critical policies and regulations that will have an impact on the beef industry. Plus, we'll visit Capitol Hill to hear directly from key lawmakers on these important issues.
And now, a special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello, I'm Kevin Oxter. Welcome to a special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, coming to you from Washington, D.C. It's a place where so much happens that can impact the U.S. cattle industry. We're coming to you from NCBA's Washington office, located just a short distance from Capitol Hill. We're going to talk to NCBA's D.C. staff, as well as some producer leaders, to get their thoughts on a wide range of important policy issues. So let's get started. Joining me now is Kevin Kester. He's the president-elect of NCBA. Kevin, we're nearing the end of 2017. What would you identify as some of the key policy wins of the past year?
Boy, I'm happy to say we actually have some good policy wins we can talk about. Waters of the United States is at the top of the list. We're just in the final phases, hopefully, of putting the nail in the coffin of that proposed disastrous rule, the Waters of the United States, WOTUS as we call it, to where it's going to go away as it was presented the last couple of years, and so that's good news. The second thing is we have trade access open to China for U.S. beef. So we think that's in the long term going to be a huge win for cattle ranchers across the nation once we get product moving into China. We just recently had our GIPSA proposed regulations formally withdrawn by the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, which we're very thankful for. That would have been a huge government intrusion into some of our marketing practices and probably created a lot of frivolous lawsuits against cattlemen and cattle producers across the country. So we got that rule withdrawn. And lastly, for our public lands folks, public lands BLM Planning 2.0 was taken back, so that would have been further government intrusion and local government control taken away from our public lands ranching families, and so we got that rule also off the table. So we're happy about those four big things.
Some great accomplishments, but I know you still have a full agenda. Tell us what else is still on the list.
Well, we have a lot of stuff that's on the list. So a tax reform package is hanging right now, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen with that. So our DC staff and our leadership is working really hard to communicate to our congressional leaders and the administration on what our priorities are for ranching families across this country for tax reform package things. So the death tax is at the top of the list, and there's a bunch of other things, interest rate deductions and like-kind exchanges and a host of other things that are popping up, capital gains, and so we're working really hard to make sure that we're not having any effects where it harms us and harms the things we do every day in business. And so that's one of the things. We have the Farm Bill that's going to be coming up in 2018, and so we have the research title that we're working hard on to get more research dollars for a whole host of important projects that we think needs to be done for the ranching industry. And also we want to make sure we keep intact the conservation title, things like the EQIP program, which a lot of ranchers across the country use. And then we're also proposing a FMD, foot and mouth disease vaccine bank. That's something new, and funding for 5 years for that. So those are the things, some of the things in the Farm Bill that we're working on.
A lot of domestic issues there, but we've also heard a lot about NAFTA recently. What's on the docket there with NCBA?
So the U.S. is right in the middle of a modernization negotiations for NAFTA between Mexico and Canada, and so it's important to us as cattle ranchers and producers that we don't become collateral damage on any renegotiations during this trade agreement talks. So we're working really hard with the U.S. Trade Representative's Office and administration to make sure that we don't get harmed, because we have zero tariffs and zero trade barriers to our U.S. beef into Mexico and China. Pretty hard to improve on that. So we're working real hard to make sure we don't get hurt, what we're calling collateral damage on that front.
It's critically important. You know, we talk a lot about legislative and policy issues, but I know NCBA works a great deal on the regulatory front. Give us an update there.
Well, there's a lot of things that we're always working on out of the dozens and dozens, but at top of mind right now is we've got to continue working on waters of the United States, because we got almost rid of the rule that we were afraid it might have passed that would harm us. But now part of the Clean Water Act is it requires there to be a waters of the United States rule of some kind. So we're working with the administration, and they're taking our suggestions so far on what we're going to operate under the Clean Water Act in the future. So that's something that's we're working on right now. We got the Antiquities Act. I know Ethan works really hard, our Public Lands Council staff person here in Washington, D.C., to try to rein in the abuses that prior administrations have done by including millions and millions of acres at all one swipe under the Antiquities Act, which harms cattle grazing and cattle operations on public lands, and it can be another nail in the coffin of putting our public lands families out of business. So things like that we're working on the regulatory front.
It's a big investment to have an office here in DC, including the very, very talented staff you have. Why is it so important for NCBA to have a presence here in our nation's capital? I
can't overstate how important it is to have an office here in DC for National Cattlemen, because each and every day while we're out working, and we say this message over and over again, but I just can't overstate it. While I'm out working, while our listeners are out working, trying to keep our families in business, ranching and farming, our staff is here protecting our backs on Capitol Hill each and every day, and with our administration and agencies that are up to no good a lot of times as we're out working and even while we're sleeping. So it's important to have a staff here full time to protect our interests each and every day.
So what would you tell our viewers in terms of how they can support NCBA's efforts here in Washington, D.C.?
There are a lot of things to do to support. The simplest thing, and it's really important, is be a member of NCBA. Write the check, no matter how much it is, whatever person can feel that they can contribute. It's important. Every little bit counts to where we can keep our staff boots on the ground here in DC. Keep us all in business. And then if a person at some point in their career can take the time to be involved at the local cattlemen's level, your state cattlemen, and even here with the national cattlemen, it's important to contribute whatever you can, but even a small check is very important.
Thank you so much for making the journey all the way from California. I'm guessing it's a trip you'll be making a lot more over the next year.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Now, if you'd like to support the work of NCBA in defending and advocating for the cattle industry in Washington, D.C., why not become an NCBA member? It's easy to do. Just call toll-free 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. As you're no doubt aware, a lot happens on Capitol Hill as Congress works on a variety of issues. We sent Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Russell Nemitz to the Hill to talk with those directly involved in the decision-making process. Russell?
Well, Kevin, as we know out here in rural America, agriculture is still a strong economic driver nationwide and helping to ensure that our farmers and ranchers stay in business and keep that driver alive and well for years to come ultimately depends on a strong farm bill for not only farmers but also for ranchers. And we're lucky enough to have on Cattlemen to Cattlemen today the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, the chairman, Mike Conaway out of Texas, and work really is already underway, drafting and creating and making sure that 2018 Farm Bill is right for everyone in farming and ranching.
Well, Russell, thank you. You're exactly correct. We've been at it for 2 years and 9 months now, trying to prepare for what will happen over the next 3 or 4 months, we think, in terms of the House version. But the real reason it's important, in addition to production agriculture and the impact it has on rural America, the real issue is the cost of food to the consumer. The American consumer has the most abundant, safest, and affordable food and fiber supply of any developed nation in the world, and that's because the hardworking men and women in production agriculture, sweat equity, risk-taking, and reliance on a safety net provided by the ag policy that keeps them in business in hard times. And so the real beneficiary is everybody in America who eats or pays for somebody to eat, and so they should be the ones that are supporting this issue, in addition to the terrific impact it has on production agriculture's viability as well as rural America.
You know, Congressman, the audience of this program predominantly is producers in the U.S. beef cattle industry. I mean, what are some of those big ticket items in the Farm Bill that you guys are putting together in hopes of meeting the needs of beef cattle producers across America?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to stay out of the livestock hair as much as we can, so that we don't mess with you guys. So obviously, having the indemnity programs for livestock is important. The one area that will impact is potentially would be the creation of a vaccine bank for foot and mouth disease for livestock. That's not anywhere right now. It would be new money they're going to have to come up with, but the need for it has been demonstrated over the last couple of years in our hearings and conversations we've had with folks. So it would be something we'll try to fold into the Farm Bill if we can. But the other areas would be cotton and dairy, as well as the county ARC payment system that's in play. But the main thing for livestock would be the foot and mouth disease.
You know, back to that FMD vaccine bank, if you will, I mean, how important, how critical maybe is the better term to phrase it in having this funding included in the Farm Bill so it's readily available, because a lot really is riding on keeping our domestic livestock herd, whether it be beef or pork, and sheep for that matter, healthy.
Well, you always want to be, not be accused of being penny wise and pound foolish, but an outbreak of any scope, any size of foot and mouth disease would be very expensive. And so trying to put in place a vaccine bank that could try to get ahead of an outbreak is really important. And like I said, it's new money, new programming. Some conversation about how broad a bank you need, how many of the various variants do you need to have in the bank at any one point in time. There's good work going on out of Kansas State on this issue as well that might at some point in time in the future alleviate us of part of that constant renewal. If you put the vaccine bank in place, it has a shelf life, and that shelf life has to be refed every single year. And so finding a solution to that would be important as well. But stay tuned. We don't know how much of a food bank, a vaccine bank we can get, but clearly the need is showing up.
How important is it for members of Congress like yourself to actually hear from beef cattle producers, or even, other producers of other commodities when they make the effort to come back here and tell their story directly to you? That really does matter.
Well, it does. The studies show that the biggest impact any member has on their decision how to vote or how to not to vote is direct contact with constituents. There is no substitute for looking your member of Congress in the eye, explaining to them how important something is or isn't, the impact it would have on them if you take a particular direction. So helping educate members on what they're about to vote on, helping them understand the consequences if they go a different direction is really important, and quite frankly, the most pivotal and impactful thing that with respect to a member. We get letters, we get cards, we get emails, all those kind of good things, and lobbyists certainly, but folks from back home looking their member in the eye is really important.
Yeah, and if they can't make it back here to Washington, D.C. and do that directly, I know in years past when work starts and continues through the process on a new Farm Bill, I mean, you guys always make it back home to your home districts and have Farm Bill meetings and hearings and that sort where they can come to you back home.
Well, it is a mistake to think that you can only approach your member of Congress on a policy issue in D.C. Quite frankly, the best place is back home. You'll have more time. It's not quite as frenetic a pace. We've done 6 listening sessions around the country, heard from some 340 plus producers and others interested in what goes on within the Farm Bill. It's a great opportunity for us. But yeah, when you find a member back home, as far as I'm concerned, when I'm home, I'm on the clock. So if somebody sees me in the grocery store or at a restaurant and they've got a burr in their saddle, I try to encourage them to come and talk to me and visit about it. Now, my family's discovered that they should go ahead and eat the meal at the restaurant, but no, every member's on the clock back home. And so if you see a member, take advantage of the opportunity to express whatever it is that's on your heart with that member, because contacts back home are probably more important than even up here in D.C., because you do have a little more time to sit and listen to someone as opposed to racing off to the next meeting or the next hearing or whatever that's going on here in D.C.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time for us on Cattlemen to Cattlemen and passing on, as always, some pretty sound advice to not just ranchers and farmers, but even for the rest of us.
Well, thanks, Russell. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, Kevin, again, we've had the opportunity and the honor today of visiting with Texas Congressman Mike Conaway, who's also the current chairman of the powerful House Agriculture Committee. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
Still ahead on this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll have more on what's happening here in Washington, D.C., and how federal policies and regulations may affect the cattle business in the coming year. Stay with us. We'll be back after break.
Blaze a trail to Phoenix, Arizona and the 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. It's the cattle industry's biggest convention with education, networking, and fun. Plus, you can check out the huge NCBA Trade Show, outstanding entertainment, and more. Don't miss the 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Phoenix, January 31st through February 2nd. Visit beefusa.org for more.
No matter what job I've got to do, my John Deere 5E tractor can do it all. Whether I'm cutting, moving feed, or building a fence. Using my 5E means my work gets done faster at a price I can afford, and that works for me.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen, coming to you from our nation's capital. NCBA's efforts in Washington help to protect the business climate for cattlemen and women all across our country. Joining us now with more on the political climate in Washington, D.C. is Colin Woodall, NCBA's Vice President of Government Affairs. Colin, USDA recently announced its decision to withdraw the GIPSA rule. What does that mean to cattle producers?
What it means is that the government's not going to tell cattle producers how they can or cannot produce or market their cattle. And that's a huge win. In essence, this rule was allowing USDA to determine what is fair in the marketplace. And I think we can all agree that the last group we want determining what's fair in the marketplace is the federal government, regardless of whose administration we're under. So that's why we see the repeal of the GIPSA rule as a huge victory for us, because again, it allows us to keep our branded programs and allow the producer to make the decisions that are best for them.
So what other kinds of accomplishments or legislative actions do we see occurring before the end of the year?
We expect a lot of action between now and the end of the year by Congress, and of course topping that list is comprehensive tax reform. The first opportunity we've had to do this in almost 31 years. There's a lot of motivation not only by the President but also by the House and the Senate to get this thing done, and there's a lot of ways that we as producers will be able to benefit from it, including working to repeal the death tax and to make sure that we keep that tax burden as low as possible on producers. We also expect to get a start on the 2018 Farm Bill, which again will have huge impact on us.
And my compliments to you and your staff for all the great videos and the work you've done on the death tax. That's been absolutely outstanding. From a regulatory standpoint, tell us this, what do you anticipate in terms of your priorities as we think of things not just from legislative but also from a regulatory perspective?
On the regulatory side, the focus really is still at EPA. And even though we have a new administrator, Scott Pruitt, and somebody who's working with us, we still have a lot of challenges. We're getting close on rollback of the Waters of the United States rule. We're not there yet, but we are getting close. But afterwards, we're going to have to put in a replacement that still protects water, but more importantly, protects the property rights of producers. And we also need to make sure that moving forward, we roll back any effort by EPA to try to consider manure as a hazardous waste, something that we're also fighting right now. So we still have a lot of challenges, even with the friendly administration.
And you speak about the friendly administration. What's been the biggest differences over the last 10, 11 months in dealing with the Trump administration for you and your staff?
The biggest difference is seeing members of this administration willing to talk to us, to get our feedback, just to run ideas by. That has been really refreshing because they care about what cattle producers are thinking. They care about their impact on cattle producers. So to be able to have an administration that is willing to take an approach that is beneficial for us rather than fighting us all the time has been a great change.
Real refreshing change. What's your message to viewers in terms of how they can get engaged in helping you and your staff accomplish some of these priorities?
Well, the biggest thing is to become a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. You know, cattle producers can't be in Washington, D.C. every day, but those dues dollars goes to making sure that we are here, walking the halls of Congress up the street here, and also in agencies at EPA just right across the street from us. So it's extremely important to make sure that you're a part of the overall effort, and being a member is the best way that you can do that.
Fantastic. Congratulations to you and your staff on the great accomplishments. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Now, if you'd like to stay up to date on key issues and events from DC, one way is by becoming a member of NCBA. Members receive the Beltway Beef newsletter, a weekly report straight from Washington that gives an up-to-date summary of top policy initiatives that'll impact your business. Joining is easy. Just call 1-866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. When we come back, we'll have more from Washington, D.C. on this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. So stay with us.
What does it mean to be an American cattleman? It means you have what it takes where it counts, on the inside. At Ritchie, we understand that. It's what's on the inside that defines us. We share the same values: ingenuity, commitment, sense of pride. These are the values that built this country. They're the values that built this company. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
Long live the courageous, the tenacious, the ones who push forward and give back. Long live the greater good, the helping hand, and long live the truck built to outlast them all. Ram, America's longest lasting pickups.
Welcome back. In addition to the work of NCBA staff here in Washington, D.C., sometimes cattle producers themselves come to town to share their own story directly with lawmakers. Russell Nemitz has more on this from Capitol Hill. Russell?
That's right, Kevin. In fact, right now we're standing outside the U.S. Capitol building here in our nation's capital. That's because we're going to visit with JJ Goycochea from Nevada. And JJ, you're a busy man. You've got a lot of irons in the fire back home with Nevada's beef cattle industry. Talk about why you're in our nation's capital today.
Sure. Well, Russell, today I'm here to talk about sage grouse and the state plans that were developed to try to help manage that sage grouse and the habitat in the West. It's obviously a key issue. The 2015 land use plan amendments that came down are troublesome to some of us. They don't incorporate enough of those state plans. So we're here to see if we can't get a little bit more local and state involvement in those.
You know, how important is it for cattlemen and cattlewomen like yourself to actually make the trip here to Washington, D.C. and tell your story directly to members of Congress?
Well, if we don't make the trip here and tell our story, someone else is telling the story, and it's not always going to be accurate. There's no one that knows best than those of us closest to the resources on the ground. And yeah, it takes a lot of time, it takes some resources to get here. You've got to have a good family and support network at home, but we've got to make the trip. If we don't, again, someone else is telling that story.
You know, talk about some of your activities back home in Nevada that involve the cattle industry.
Sure, so I'm a fourth generation cattle rancher. I was in private practice as a large animal veterinarian for 17 years. I've been blessed with being the state vet for the last couple of years for the state of Nevada. I serve on the executive committee, Nevada Cattlemen's Association, and I'm the current vice chair of NCBA's Federal Lands Committee as well. So I do have a lot of irons in the fire, but I believe in this industry and I'll keep fighting for it as long as I can.
Well, absolutely, and we know these members of Congress are busy men and women for sure, and they have a lot of different groups coming to them every single day, but when you make the trip out here and they hear it from guys like you themselves, it really hits home for a lot of them.
I think it does, and I think they appreciate that. You know, a name with a face goes a long ways. You can send letters, you can make the phone calls, but when they get here and they see what you're really all about, and they know that you walk the walk and talk the talk, it makes a big difference to them.
Well, of course, for states like Nevada, I mean, public lands play a very critical role to the overall success of the U.S. beef cattle industry.
Absolutely, and especially in the West, and with at least 40% of our western beef herd spending some time on our public lands out west, it is key. And if we don't have that, this beef industry can't sustain itself in the West.
Well, and just one or two guys like yourself can't tell the entire message either for the U.S. beef cattle industry. Is this something you encourage other cattlemen and cattlewomen to get involved with and at least get involved some sort of way?
Oh, absolutely. So start at that local level and your state association. You've got to be involved in the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and the Public Lands Council. Those two groups in the West work so well together and so close. That they are our voice here on the Hill, And if you can come out here and work with them, we will be a lot more productive going forward.
Absolutely. Well, we certainly appreciate you for stepping up to the plate as well and being a volunteer leader for our industry.
Well, thank you, and thank you guys for all you do to get our message out there. Thank you, Russell.
All right, Kevin, that's going to do it for now from Capitol Hill. We'll go ahead and send it back to you.
And joining me now is Ethan Lane. He's the Executive Director of the Public Lands Council and Executive Director of Federal Lands for NCBA. Ethan, let's begin by talking about public lands. Why are public lands so valuable to American cattlemen and cattlewomen?
Well, you know, first of all, 40% of the Western cattle herd spends time at one point or another in their life cycle on federal lands in the West. So whereas an operator in the Midwest or the East can have a successful operation on 1,000 acres or a couple hundred acres, when you get further west into dry, arid climate with a smaller rainfall total each year, you really need that larger footprint to make an operation successful, and that means federal permits. So we spend a lot of time making sure that those producers in the West have access to those permits across the West.
And I know you've talked before on our show about how critically important it is for folks to come back here to DC. Why is that so valuable?
Well, you know, they hear from us all of the time. Our staff here in DC spends every day on Capitol Hill, and we do a fantastic job making sure that our congressional leaders and their staff really understand the fine detail of these issues. But hearing it from producers in person, hearing those personal stories is absolutely irreplaceable. There's a world of difference between us telling them and the producers telling them themselves, and you can see the legislators' eyes light up, and you can see that recognition as they hear those personal stories.
One issue I know public lands ranchers deal with is endangered species and some of the legislation and regulation around that. Can you give us an update?
Absolutely. You know, Endangered Species Act implementation is something that has plagued cattle producers across the West for generations now. We're talking about a 40-year-long history of a law that has just gone well beyond what was intended, in large part because a lot of the activist environmental groups that are so opposed to the cattle industry and other resource industries in the West have really mastered the art of suing the federal government for implementation along terms that are more favorable to them. So we've spent a lot of time and energy here in Washington, D.C. helping Congress and the presidency and the administration understand just why we need to get this act working the way the American people already think that it does. So a lot of that focuses on making sure that when we do a listing decision, that we have enough data to know what recovered looks like for that species. So we're not just leaving it open-ended for generations to deal with, like the gray wolf, say in the Midwest and the upper Great Lakes, where we have more than 4,000 wolves now running around in an area that just simply can't support that many. So we're trying to focus on common sense ways to make that law work better for producers and for the species that are being protected.
During the previous administration, we talked a little bit about what was going on in terms of the Antiquities Act. Have we seen any positive change there?
Quite a bit. We're actually in an administration now that really understands the problems with the Antiquities Act as it's written. This is an incredibly vague law that was written in 1906 with the best of intentions. Teddy Roosevelt wanted to make sure that as we were exploring the West, as we're exploring all these new lands, if we stumbled upon some antiquities, some Native American burial grounds, pots, anything like that, that the president could step in quickly and draw a circle on the map and make sure that those things weren't disturbed. What we've seen, unfortunately, in the 110, 111 years since then is presidents abuse that power for their own purposes. Fast forward to 2017 and the end of the Obama administration, we saw multi-million acre landscapes being locked up by a law that, when originally debated in Congress, was focused on 600 acres or 1,200 acres maximum. So we've gone well beyond the intent. We finally have some bills moving on both the House side and the Senate side that would really bring some controls in place, that would put a requirement for local input and sign off on any designations over about 5,000 acres. And as that total got higher, the need for input and sign off would grow along with that, which really is a common sense way to build some controls in and bring local impacted stakeholders back to the table. We also have a president now that has asked for that input. And he said, look, let us know how to fix this law so that future presidents can't abuse it. And that's a real new direction. We've never seen a president be willing to limit his own power like this before. So we're excited at the possibilities.
That really is positive. And one last question. These are all important issues. What would you say to producers in terms of how they should get involved?
Make your voices heard. One thing I spend a lot of time talking about is how good the other side of these issues are at getting their voices out. And I'm talking about in your local paper. You know, all of us sit around the coffee shop back home and we read the local paper and we see an op-ed that, you know, is just really one-sided and hits the industry right in the chest. And, you know, what we need to do a really much better job of is getting that voice out both in DC and out in the country. So the best way producers can do that is let their senators and congressmen know the reality of these situations in their backyard, but pick up a pen, write to your local paper, make sure your voice is heard on all levels because it's important to get those voices out there.
Fantastic recommendations. Thanks so much for coming to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For more information on the challenges and issues that impact federal lands and the ranchers that graze there, visit the website publiclandscouncil.org. And don't forget, you can help in the fight against regulations that threaten you and your livelihood by joining NCBA. It's easy to do. Just call 1-866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Stay with us. There's more of this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen from our nation's capital when we return.
This isn't a 9-to-5 job. So when you check the pants one last time and get things ready for the night crew, it's not the clock that tells you the day is over. It's the confidence of knowing you got it right. So when you see the signs of BRD, choose confidence. Choose Suprevo from Merck Animal Health. Talk to your veterinarian about Suprevo for BRD treatment.
Hello everybody, Stormy Warren here from SiriusXM's The Highway. Join me at the 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Phoenix, Arizona. Come explore over 6 acres of displays for more than 350 companies during the best cattle industry trade show. Plus, you can have some fun with my friend comedian Bill Engvall at our exclusive Cowboy Comedy Club. So blaze a trail to Phoenix, January 31st to February 2nd. Find out more at beefusa.org.
Welcome back. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. as we dig into some of the tough policy issues facing the cattle industry. Let's toss it back to Russell Nemitz on Capitol Hill for more.
Kevin, as we continue our coverage today from Capitol Hill, we're now in the Cannon House of Representatives building meeting with Florida Congressman Ted Yoho. And Ted, actually, you just met with the NCBA's Allison Cook talking about some very important issues that are impacting today's beef cattle industry. How important is it for folks like Allison and NCBA to come meet with you one-on-one and bring you up to speed on what's going on with the industry?
Oh, it's the utmost importance. People like Allison that works for NCBA, they come up here to educate members of Congress. You know, I'm fortunate because I've been a large animal vet for the last 35 years. That's what I've done. And so I know that the issues surrounding livestock very well. But there's a lot of people that are up here that don't understand the plight that we have to go through or some of the challenges and struggles. NCBA does a great job, and you know, we promote this all the time for people to join their local associations and the national associations, because that money goes to have people like Allison come up here and educate people. And without that kind of education, a lot of the issues like the foot and mouth disease, there's so many people that they think that's what politicians do. They put your foot in your mouth and you get in trouble. But when you educate them about that, that's a national food security issue. It makes a big impact.
Well, we've also learned during our time here in your office that you're also a member of the NCBA. Maybe tell folks at home why you pay those membership dues.
I got the cup.
You do have the cup.
Again, you have to have a strong national organization that can be a spokesman for the farmer and the rancher out there. You know, the agricultural population in America is 1% roughly. It's a very small amount of people. So you have to have a large voice on Capitol Hill to represent that small voice. And that's why, again, we're supportive of the NCBA and our local chapters.
You know, I think folks at home would also find it interesting to find out why from you. I mean, you go from being a large animal veterinarian to a member of Congress. I was joking before the interview. What'd you do, lose a bet or something?
Yeah, no. You know, it's funny what you learn on the south end of a northbound horse or cow. You know, you learn a lot of common sense. One of them is keep your mouth shut, and I didn't learn that real well when I came up here. You know, I just got fed up with what the government wasn't doing. You know, we talked about fixing things for years, but they never got fixed, and it's time to start fixing them. You know, out on the farm, you've got to deliver. You guys have got to produce a crop, or, you know, a calf crop or a corn crop, whatever you're growing. And if you don't produce, you're out of business. It shouldn't be any different up here. And it's interesting because, as you heard, I made the decision in the cow pen, so they ribbed me back at home. He's the guy that went from the cow pens to Congress, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here. There's a lot of work to do, and we're hoping to get this next farm bill through right off, and we're going to work real hard for that.
Yeah, all jokes aside, I mean, it doesn't take too long when you're in your office to really realize and see and feel that your heart and passion still lies in agriculture.
It really does. You know, I mean, you can see the stuff we have on the wall. You know, that's what I've done since I was about 15 years of age. And I think, you know, something I always tell people, everybody in this room is involved in agriculture. You're either a producer, a processor, or a consumer of agricultural products, because we eat every day. So everybody's affected by agriculture. And, you know, we had a 4-H contest in one of our small towns. And the 4-H kids get it. They had scarecrows made out of straw and all that. And their sign says, "We farm, you eat." I mean, that's pretty basic. And that's why, you know, we do what we do. That's why the rancher's out there every day, you know, doing what they do, or the farmer out there doing his crops. It's a culture, it's a way of life, and it's a good way of life that we don't want to lose. And we want to make sure the farmers stay productive. We've got the best farmers in the world. I mean, it's just amazing.
We absolutely do, and we certainly want to thank you, too, for stepping up to the plate and representing a lot of different interests, but for this audience, the farm and ranch audience, and making sure that our interests remain a priority up here on Capitol Hill, and for working on those important livestock industry issues that groups like the NCBA are working with you on.
They really do, and you know, you look at the farm community, and that's a community that, you know, has the values of this country. They believe in God, they believe in their family, they believe in their country. You know, I don't think you'll see many of those people kneeling down when the national anthem's played. And that's something that we have to instill in the next generation. And as President Reagan said, the liberties and freedoms we have and we experience every day doesn't get passed on in the bloodstream. It gets passed on by what we do as the leaders of our families, the leaders of our community, and we have to show that for the next generation. And that's why I love the farm people.
Some very good advice. Again, our thanks to Florida Congressman Ted Yoho, by the way, a large animal veterinarian in his previous life, for joining us on Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
What? People always say that. Used to be a large animal vet.
Still are.
I'll always
That's
be
right.
a veterinarian.
That's right.
This other job only lasts for 2 years at a time.
Very well. I stand corrected. Congressman Ted Yoho, current and always will be large animal vet, and more importantly, a big fan of agriculture as a whole. Kevin, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
And joining us now to talk more about NCBA's efforts to protect cattlemen and women is Allison Cook. She's Executive Director of Government Affairs. Allison, thanks for coming back to the show.
Glad to be here.
You know, I know one of the areas that you're working on is cattle transportation. Why is that an important issue, and what are some specific concerns that NCBA has related to transportation?
Absolutely. Obviously, we have to get the animals to the facilities so that then they can be slaughtered and end up on people's plates. But one of the issues that we're working on right now is our concerns over the new electronic logging device mandate that goes into place in December. We have some major concerns there that we're trying to work with DOT on.
And so tell us, what are some of the things that NCBA is doing to address those concerns?
Absolutely. So we have a DOT petition for an exemption, for a waiver from the ELDs for livestock haulers. We also have appropriations language that has passed through the House Appropriations Bill that would give us a 1-year delay on the ELDs for livestock haulers and insect haulers. So we're asking the Senate to maintain that language when the two bills go to conference, and so that's our request this week on the Senate side.
And we're hearing a lot more discussion about the Farm Bill now. What are some of NCBA's top priorities as it relates to the next Farm Bill?
Sure. So our number one priority is the foot and mouth disease vaccine bank that we're trying to create. It would be a bank housed overseas, and it would be we would have the ability for surge capacity in the case of an outbreak, and we would have the doses either on hand or ready to be produced very quickly to be shipped back to the states so that they can be disseminated and that we can cover ourselves in the case of an outbreak.
You spend a lot of time just up the street here on Capitol Hill. Do you anticipate any progress on the Farm Bill anytime soon?
You know what? It's already moving. The engines are going. The pen is being put to paper. We're excited to hear that. We continue to have weekly meetings over there to make sure that we're on top of any questions that they still have about our FMD bank. And we're continuing to watch out for conservation title that's very important to a lot of our producers, as well as research funding. Ag research funding is important, and we're going to keep our finger on that as well.
So how can our viewers at home get more involved in any of these issues?
Absolutely. Calling your member of Congress is so important. If they don't hear from rural America, if they don't hear from our producers, then sometimes they're not aware of some of the issues, in particular like some of these transportation issues. If they don't know that you're concerned about it, then what can they do to help you? So giving them a call, writing them a letter, sending them an email, that's what helps.
You were saying you have a busy day ahead. I recognize that, so we're going to let you go, but thank you so much for carving out some time for us today.
Thanks for having me.
There are many great reasons to become an NCBA member, but one is the chance to read the National Cattlemen. It's the official publication of NCBA, and it provides timely news and articles about the issues and events affecting all of our business. A subscription is included free of charge when you become a member. Just call 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Still ahead, we'll talk taxes and NCBA's work on this important topic, and we'll also visit with the cowboy poet Baxter Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
There is a new world out there, revealing itself in unpredictable ways. A world that demands more from the land and those who grow, farm, and build on it. This new world calls for the ingenuity to get more out of it, while preserving as much as we can. After all, to stay ahead of tomorrow, we need to be equipped for it today.
Hey everybody, I'm Stormy Warren from SiriusXM's The Highway. Join me for the 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Phoenix, January 31st through February 2nd. You can find out more at beefusa.org.
Welcome back as we continue our coverage from Washington, D.C. Comprehensive tax reform continues to be a top priority for NCBA members. Joining us now is Danielle Beck, NCBA's Director of Government Affairs. Danielle, what's the latest?
Well, quite a bit has happened over the past few weeks when it comes to tax reform. The House began the process by introducing their own bill, and last week they marked up that bill in the House Ways and Means Committee. We believe that this week that bill could be brought before the full House for a vote, and at the same time, the Senate Finance Committee introduced legislation last week, and we could see a markup in the committee this week. We believe that a Senate vote could happen as early as next week, paving the way for conference negotiations to begin right after the Thanksgiving recess. The legislation is rapidly in flux. There are differences that both chambers are going to need to work out, and that means that the provisions that are important to ag are subject to change. In order to find out what's going on and get the latest, producers should follow us on Twitter at Beltway Beef. We'll be posting updates continuously and encouraging producers to contact their representatives and engage when it matters most.
Thanks, Danielle, for that update. I think we can all see the importance of having a voice in the nation's capital, and we need a strong membership base to make that happen. So join me as a member of NCBA. It's easy to do. Just call 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website at ncba.org. When we return, it's time for another visit with our good friend Baxter Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay Tough fence will last 3 times longer and is 4 times stronger than low tensile fencing. High tensile wire, solid vertical stays, and tight fixed knots all provide superior strength. You will use fewer posts, saving time, labor, and money. Protect your investment for generations with Stay Tough fence. Stay strong, stay tight, stay tough.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Preferred makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Preferred Direct, visit us at Preferred.com. Preferred, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
When a new calf hits the ground, his clock starts ticking. A belly full of colostrum gives him his best odds, but if he doesn't get any, his time starts running out. That's when you grab a bag of Oxford Ag Colostrum in their patented feeding system. Fill them with warm water, shake it to mix, feed it with a tube or nipple, and you are done. No bucket, no bottle, no mess, and right on time. Get yours at oxfordag.com. Costs less than a dead calf.
He was a Utah cowboy, and he wore a good felt hat that was pulled down level to his ears till the tops of them were flat. The weathered lines upon his face showed he had a checkered past. I reached to shake his proffered hand, but both his wrists were in a cast. Carpal tunnel? I asked deadpan, but he never broke a grin. Rodeo? He quietly said. Broncs or bulls? I asked again. No, team roping was his answer. I responded, quite a wreck. Well, the healer saw it better. Then he winced and stretched his neck. And then began his tragic tale. I was on my trader horse who hadn't bucked for near 2 weeks and was steady on the course. You know how you've always thought if you're dallied up and tight, your horse can't buck while dragging all that weight? Well, partner, that ain't right. My healer's horse came off the ground when my pony broke in too. The second jump, we cleared the fence, but I held my dallies true. The third time, like a slingshot, put the poor old steer in orbit. And I'm thinking, if I make this ride, I might get a good score, but he fired me from the saddle with such force, he came unshod and bucked so hard up to the sky, so high that I saw God. Brigham Young was there beside him, according to this spiel. Respectfully, I waited for the wisdom he'd reveal, some divine-sent revelation of man's purpose here on earth, or a glimpse of cowboy heaven, or what angels' cows are worth. Did he give you any inkling of your future dirt to dirt? Yes, he did, the cowboy whispered. He said, son, this is going to hurt. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Thanks, Baxter. We sure enjoy our visits with you each and every week. Want to rewatch an episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen or catch up on anything you've missed? Then visit our YouTube page. You'll find replays of all of our shows filled with educational segments and producer profiles from around the country. It's also another chance to see Baxter Black. So check us out at youtube.com/Cattlemen to Cattlemen. There's more Cattlemen to Cattlemen still ahead, so stay with us.
Want more profit out of your pasture? Then here's our 2 cents on using parasite control to make some dollars. In a trial of calves, Long Range outperformed Sidectin and Safeguard dewormers combined by as much as an extra 40 pounds. Yeah, that's a lot of extra profit, and that's why it pays to treat cattle with Long Range. Do not treat within 48 days of slaughter. Not for use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, including dry dairy cows or in veal calves. Post-injection site damage can occur. These reactions have disappeared without treatment. You can't afford another season without Long Range.
Say goodbye to your toughest pasture and rangeland weeds for good. Because one product offers season-long control, handles the widest spectrum of broadleaf weeds, and clears the way for increased forage with greater grazing flexibility. So you get more beef per acre at a cost that can't be beat. It's Grazon Next HL herbicide, and if it's in your pastures, plain and simple, weeds won't be.
Welcome back. As you hear regularly on this show, there are a lot of issues facing the beef industry. As cattle producers, we all have enough to keep us busy on our own operations every day. That means we can't always be in places where issues are being discussed and decisions are being made. That's where the NCBA staff comes in. They take their responsibility of representing beef producers very seriously. They know we have the important job of producing beef, and they have the important job of fighting issues, opening markets for our product, and ensuring a favorable business climate. Even though we may not always agree on how to tackle the issues, I think we can all agree that our success as an industry will depend on our ability to come together and address these challenges with a unified voice. As cattlemen and women, we share a lot of the same interests and values. Allowing one or two issues to divide us is dangerous to our industry and our way of life. There's too many groups that want to put an end to livestock production. We must all stand together. So my personal challenge to you is to become a member of NCBA, if you're not already. Don't sit back and refuse to join because you don't agree with an issue or two. Don't think you don't have to join because there's already enough members. Don't make other producers bear the entire burden of supporting the industry when we all enjoy the benefits of what NCBA does. Stand up, sign up, and be a part of the solutions that we need to develop to keep our industry moving forward. Join NCBA right now. Another important way you can support our industry is by attending the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. The 2018 event runs from January 31st through February 2nd in Phoenix, Arizona. You can get all the details on how to blaze a trail to Phoenix at ncba.org. Well, that wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks for spending some of your time with us. From Washington, D.C., I'm Kevin Ochsner. May God bless the leaders in this city and the decisions they make. And may God bless you. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.